We were both at the game. It was everything we kind of... Well, I wouldn't say everything we wanted.
No.
I think we probably could have done with a little bit more drama, if I'm honest. We both had a couple of wines before the game, really settled in. Obviously, I spent that time, really getting to know your mum and you and, getting all those lovely childhood stories. But I think there was that kind of anticipation of like how the game would go, that it was going to be a really hotly contested battle. It was going to be really end to end. There was going to be lots of drama. And then the first half happened. I mean... Rach, what did you think? I mean, the atmosphere was great. 20,000 people packed out at Stamford Bridge. Really beautiful event with the 400 Club and also the WPLL. So that was lovely, kind of seeing some old familiar faces. And then you sat down and it just fell a bit flat. What did you think?
Well, just for the benefit of the listeners, my mum's previous game had been Chelsea-Arsenal last year at Sockgate. So the bar was set high for kind of entertainment value and goals and stuff. So... yeah, the first half we came back in and it was maybe a bit flatter. I think it was a case of a patient Chelsea. I think they were creating opportunities, but they also knew that Manchester City were going to have the ball and they allowed them to do that. And I also think it was a case of Manchester City trying to work their style, play it out from the back, lure Chelsea in and go from there. And that just wasn't really working for them. Chelsea weren't really falling for that. And I actually think something that I've really... appreciated so far this season is Chelsea's patience in games now. Even if things might not always be going their way immediately, it's like they really trust the process. They know it's going to work. And I think that's what we saw in the first half, that patience. And I just felt like Man City struggled a little bit for a plan B. And I think Chelsea capitalised on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there was much kind of progression from City's end. It kind of just fell a bit flat. Like they looked a little bit... I want to say impotent, if I'm honest. I think I've got to agree with you that there doesn't seem to be... Yeah, there wasn't much excitement around them. I think they came into it feeling a little bit nervous, a little bit kind of on edge. I think Chelsea definitely had the upper hand in the first half. There was a couple of good chances, but I don't really feel like either one of them got stuck into the game fully. But I think there's one thing being patient, but there's one thing just kind of like... I don't know, just giving the crowd nothing. I mean, even Basil was quiet. It was just it was just a bit flat in the first half, and I just kind of wanted the game to open up a little bit more, and it kind of never did. But I mean, after half time, it kind of felt like there was a little bit of spice. I felt like everyone had gone away, had a bit of reflection, kind of had a couple of mince pies at half time and thought, you know what, we're going to go out all guns blazing here. Like, someone's got to get a result out of this. This is not the kind of game that we want to see go into a draw. And who else steps up to the plate but Mayra Ramirez with the opening goal for Chelsea? But it came so late in the second half. I mean, how well did she do for that goal? Because it set Stamford Bridge on fire.
It was so good. And I know people always talk about Mayra Ramirez's strength, which is obviously a key part of her game. And you could see that in the way she brushed off Alana Kennedy's attempted challenge or attempt to kind of pull her down. But the game intelligence to kind of draw Alex Greenwood in and then cut across to the other side and bury it, it was a real example of the multiple facets of her game, like the multiple kind of bits of her game that we're so impressed with. She settled in incredibly quickly. She's a big game player, which is so impressive when she hasn't been in this Chelsea squad for that long. She absolutely steps up in the big games. I think there's a fear that I think defenders have against her, and she doesn't even have to be in the box to put the fear of God into defenders. She just has to be in possession in your half. And you could kind of see that. I think, Alana Kennedy didn't do great in that situation. I think she struggled a little bit in terms of finding options, and I just felt she felt a little bit, for me, rattled in the second half. And once the goals went in, they were in quick succession as well. I know we'll get to the second goal, which was another beaut, but I just felt like Man City's decision making, they're a mature team that we would expect to be comfortable at this level. They play top quality squads. They've beaten Barcelona, for God's sake, but it just felt like it really rattled them, and their decision making suffered after those goals. They got to the point where they were just passing the ball straight back to Chelsea in their own half, and that kind of surprised me a little bit in terms of how they reacted to the goals.
Definitely. I think, just before we touch on the other goal there, we've got a listener question in. Neil has asked, could Ramirez win the Golden Boot this season? I mean, just to put it in perspective in terms of where we stand on the WSL top goal scorers. So we've got Bonnie Shaw on 7, Guru Wrighton on 5, Kiko, Marnham and Daly on 4, and then Mayra Ramirez on 3. So it's not unachievable by any stretch of the imagination, but it you know, there's a bit of distance there between Mayra and Bunny at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think Chelsea rely on her in the same way that City rely on Bunny. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that Mayra isn't a very key player in that Chelsea squad, but I think the fact that Chelsea are able to score from anywhere means that she's...
And anyone.
And anyone. She's not necessarily relied upon in the same way. And Chelsea are comfortable with rotating because they're obviously in multiple competitions, so they will rotate their players. They've got top quality players that they can rotate in for Ramirez. So that will make it a little bit trickier, I think.
Definitely. And I mean, in quick succession, we've got another listener question. I know this is going to be one of your mum's favourites, really. We've got listener Petra on YouTube community page said, let's talk about Maika Hamano. She got the assist. I know she's a fan favourite of your mum's. Tell me what it is that Judith saw in Hamano that she particularly loved at Stamford Bridge on Saturday.
I think she just found that she was the player who was everywhere, and she was disrupting a lot of City's flow. You know, it wasn't just what she was doing on the ball. She's obviously very good on the ball, but what she was doing off the ball in terms of harassing play, and she just seemed to be everywhere. And I think that was something that was a player that my mom noticed kept kind of having impact on the game, and she was right. I think she's stepped up massively. She's taken this opportunity with injuries in the Chelsea squad, and she's been really impressive. And I thought she was excellent. Her and Ramirez were so good in that game.
100%. I think it felt like they were the ones who were going to switch up like this monotonous thing that was happening. We'll turn a little bit now and talk about City. Rachel, you said on the pod last week you thought both teams would score. I kind of thought City would just be a little bit better. Obviously Lauren Hemp out for this occasion. How much do we feel like she would have made an impact on this game? I think for me, we missed that Lauren Hemp tenacity and that kind of confidence, and that you know when Lauren Hemp gets the ball, the first thing she's gonna do is try and progress and take it forward. And I think I didn't see as much in this. I think I saw flashes of it obviously with Bunny Shaw, but I think there was a spark missing, and I do think a lot of that does come down to Hemp sometimes.
Yeah, I also said that I thought Chelsea would edge it, and I think when I saw that Hemp was out, I was more confident that Chelsea would edge it. I think she's been such an integral part to City's attack going forward, and not just what she provides in terms of assists, but also goals herself, and also defensively. I think she's very good at tracking back and providing defensive cover, and I think Mary Fowler struggled to fill those shoes. I was really excited to see Hemp and Bronze match up. That was something I was excited to see in the game, and unfortunately I don't really feel like we got that like big bust up that we might see. So I do think they struggled to find her as an outlet. Like, she was missing as that key outlet. She's not afraid to run at players, cut inside, and that was an area that I think they weren't creating that many opportunities, and I think that may have been one of the reasons why.
With another switch up, Gareth Taylor started Mary Fowler over Chloe Kelly. Kelly came on in the 80th minute she's had very little WSL game time this season, which I think has probably disappointed quite a few people. There was also a very famous guest at Stamford Bridge with Serena Wiegman watching in the stand. Quite a lot for her to be super happy with, especially with Millie Bright and Alex Greenwood. What do you think she's going to take away from the game, Rach?
Well, firstly, on the Chloe Kelly thing, I probably would have brought her on a bit early purely because it wasn't really working. Mm-hmm. But like this idea that she's this big game changer that is just being left on the bench, I think is maybe overblown a little bit. You know, I think I can understand people wanting her on. It's offering something different. And I think when the game wasn't going the way you wanted, I think having her on makes sense. But, you know, I think we've seen her in better form before. So this idea that like, that's a reason they lost, I wouldn't pin all that on Kelly. They've been managing pretty well, staying at the top of the table up until this weekend with her not playing that many minutes. But I just think in terms of how the game was going and it wasn't really working the way they wanted, I probably would have brought her on a bit earlier. Defensively, I thought Lucy Bronze had a great game. I thought Millie Bright had a great game. I thought Alex Greenwood had some really good parts of the game. She was definitely the better defender of the two at the back. I think she had to deal with a couple of maybe Alana Kennedy missed passes at times, which put her under a little bit of pressure. There was an excellent track back that she did where Kennedy, I think maybe it was Ramirez, right, and I'm not 100% sure, maybe Ramirez passed the ball straight to her in the middle of the pitch, and Alice Greenwood managed to get all the way. It looked like a sure goal, and I think it was Greenwood who managed to get back and prevent that. So, despite the loss, I think Alex Greenwood did play well. So yeah, I think in that respect, plenty for Sarina Wiegman to be happy with.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, it's going to give her a bit of a headache, I think, moving forwards. But another manager who is absolutely smashing business at the moment, Sonia Bompastor. I mean, it just feels like a bit of an invincible reign at the moment. The first WSL manager to win their first 7 games in charge. When she won her first 5, we all thought that was a massive accolade. I think it was only Jonas Eidevall and Birmingham City manager from years bygone that had managed to achieve that feat with the first 5 consecutive games at the start of a season. But it just feels like there's been this I don't know, there was so much fear, I think, about the end of the Hayes era and then moving into Sonia Bompastor, but it's just been so seamless. It almost feels like Chelsea have not only been seamless, but also stepped up their game.
Yeah.
And I think that's what feels a little bit scary at the moment, but also feels like the league is already going in one direction. Do we feel like it's too early to call it, or do we think actually that game was pretty indicative of what we like to see?
I think it's a massive win for Chelsea. I think if they beat Man United in that game in hand and put themselves out a result beyond, you know what I mean? They're not within result distance of Manchester City. It's a very nice place for them to be in, particularly with the fact that I see them just improving game on game. I think it's amazing what she has done in the space of time that she's, come in. It's not just a case of her coming in and taking over a completely settled squad. Like, there have been a number of new players in, and it's an out of possession Chelsea I think are really impressive. It's the patience I think is really impressive. They've always been mentality monsters, but that doesn't feel like something that's dipped, which I think is very impressive, that mentality that they've sustained, or whether it's adapted a little bit, I don't know. But, they've played games where they've not been at their best, and it's never felt like they've panicked. And I think that's what's, not that necessarily Chelsea did that before, but there were times where sometimes they might just be a little bit frantic, kind of snatching a goal. They would have always ultimately end up getting it, but it would sometimes feel a little bit more stressful than what we're seeing here. I think I've been really impressed with how relaxed they've been. And granted, they've not really gone behind very much. I think other than Celtic, they haven't really exactly gone behind. So they haven't maybe had to deal with that as such. But even in games that have been a bit tighter, I've just been impressed with that kind of calmness in the team, which I think is you tell me, for a manager to come in. So if I knew the answer, bloody hell, we'd all be doing it.
100%. I think, what has been weird to see, I think, in a way, is there hasn't been any dip in standard. I've never had a game, I mean, there's been tight games, obviously, this season, but I don't think there's ever been a game that I've thought Chelsea won't end up winning. There's just kind of assuredness to them that I think is, in a way, amazing, but also not exciting. It kind of feels like they're a little bit above the rest of the pack now, and that I don't want it to just keep on becoming this kind of monotonous, like Chelsea are here and not everyone else is there. Like Man City obviously doing amazing. I think Arsenal definitely sort of hot on the heels of things now they've found form again, but it just feels like Chelsea have got a different gear. They've got 6th gear and everyone's still in 5th type vibe. But Rach, I mean, you were at Celtic Park where Chelsea beat Celtic 2-1. What was that game like? Because obviously that was one of the sort of rare occurrences, I suppose, that we've seen Chelsea had to come from behind.
Well, you have to factor in they did make a number of changes in that starting lineup. So it felt like that. It felt like they were playing a squad that hadn't maybe played as regularly together. They were the better team. It felt like you were just waiting for a goal, and then Celtic got their goal, and it was a very good goal from Celtic. And I do think at times we've maybe seen that maybe chink in the armour at the back of a good break can really put them under pressure. And I think Celtic did really well to capitalise on that. They deservedly took the lead, Chelsea, but my God, it was squeaky bum time at the end, towards the end. I really thought Celtic were going to get the equaliser. Yeah. And the fans were brilliant there as well. It was a really good atmosphere. And I think that's another thing that plays a part, is playing in that kind of atmosphere that's so against you. So they handled that well as well. But that was a good match.
Oh God, I wish I'd have gone to that. I feel a little bit gutted that I missed out on that kind of atmosphere. Yeah, look at you beaming, even kind of reminiscing about it now. A slight bit of bad news coming after the game on Saturday for Chelsea. Bompastor confirmed after the game that Kadisha Buchanan sustained an ACL injury. Listener Rihanna asked on Instagram, with another ACL injury for Chelsea, how do you think their squad depth will help defensively? This is arguably the main area where they make mistakes. It's a horrible one, because even with Buchanan out, I still don't think they're defensively weak. Like, you look at their track record at the moment, and they're not conceding goals. I think even with Buchanan out, I think they still have ample coverage. It sounds really savage, but I'm not concerned.
No, I think what's a real shame is Buchanan was really finding her stride. She was playing really
definitely
well, and she was one of the standout defenders for Chelsea. So that's a real shame. Like, obviously never a good time to get an ACL injury, but to have it when you're in flying form is just gutting. So really sad to hear that. But I agree with you. I think their depth, they'll be okay. And, you know, I often see Chelsea fans try and remind us that LJ's out and Sam is out, and it's hard to kind of worry for them because of the depth of quality that they have in their I was going to say starting 11, in their 23 plus. It's the quality that's so impressive in their depth. So yeah, I think in terms of Chelsea fans, it will be gutting, but I don't think it will necessarily be worrying. It's so long as everyone else stays fit, right?
100%. I think I've got to also give a shout out to Sandy Baltimore. I thought she was super impressive on Saturday. I thought she had a great game. I think tracking back, I thought there was a tenacity, there was an energy to her. So yeah, I was super impressed with her. So yeah, I think it's business as usual for Chelsea, really. I struggle to find a chink in their armour no matter what happens. They're just invincible at the moment, and I just worry that the league's going one way and something needs to happen. But we're only,
I think,
a third of the way through.
In previous seasons, it's been so tight, and I think, maybe that won't be the case this season at the top. But I think what's going to be interesting, I said this at the beginning of the season, I thought we were going to see more of a scrap in the bottom half, and it seems to be going that way in the bottom half.
Yeah, for sure.